All right, what's poppin', everybody? I'm your host, Karabo Mohola, coming live at the Startup Business Festival, giving you all things entrepreneurship. Look, today we're about to have a phenomenal fireside conversation with Lucky Ditedu and Eugene, going through the importance of fintech entrepreneurship. Look, this has been a phenomenal week. We are kicking it at the Startup Business Festival, going really, really crazy, learning all things in the space of tech. Look, I'm truly, truly learning and absorbing this moment. But before I go any further, let me give it to Mr. Lucky Ditedu.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karabo, for that. Karabo Mohole, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Karabo, for that warm introduction. This is the Startup Business Festival, where we celebrate all things entrepreneurship throughout this month of November. November to us is a November to remember. We started the festival activities on the 1st of this month, and we're going all the way to the 30th of the month, engaging on all things entrepreneurship, keynote addresses, panel discussions, pitching sessions, Bioscope. It's been really amazing. And this weekend, we had a phenomenal hackathon where we're looking into building fintech solutions, as well as building a portal for the Invelesi Enviropreneurs program. What an amazing time we had, with over 130 developers, entrepreneurs participating in this year's hackathon, the second edition of our Startup Biz Hack, which is an amazing event that we do every year here at the Startup Business Festival. I am super, super excited that we now are getting into the swing of things, engaging on the urgency of fintech startups. Why do we need fintech startups in our rural as well as our township markets? What can we do to ensure that we can drive more? So I'm in conversation with my brother, Eugene. Eugene, how are you doing, brother?
Great, thanks, and yourself, brother?
Very good, thank you. Please introduce yourself to the world. I mean, there are people who are wondering who is Eugene, and they just want to find out the depth and the what you do within the entrepreneurship innovation ecosystem.
That is thank you for that question, even though I never really answer that question fully because there's a lot that I'm involved in. To start off, I think I would call myself a catalyst. I'm involved in anything and everything. I'm the founder of an organization called the Catalyst Movement, which is basically an organization that was founded to create employment and opportunities through skills development and the leveraging of information. If anything, we, I would say me and my former TUT schoolmates were the front runners of the Feast Must Fall campaign, where we realized the troubles of graduating or finding practical experience during your study, and actually even finding a reliable source of employment. But more than that, I think through that organization, I was able to grow as a person. I was able to meet so many beautiful people. I'm currently the digital economy representative of the South African BRICS Youth Association at the BRICS Business Council. There's so many things that I involve myself in. I would say I lead without a title. I think that's the best description, because sometimes titles tend to limit us as human beings. Because you are a CEO of a certain entity, you then don't associate yourself with certain people because you feel as though poverty is like the flu, as if though if you associate with certain people of a certain class, you would catch that poverty. If you associate with people who are rich, you would catch that money, I guess, which is partly true in a certain sense, but I am a mentalist. I believe everything is in the mind, and if one works on their mindset, they are able to bring so much or to do so much. So I prefer to bring.
I love what you're saying. I mean, the mentalist, but also really the catalyst as well. So I mean, we're becoming a boom rapper today.
Oh.
Catalyst, mentalist. So fantastic. So why do you think there's a need, to develop more catalysts or enablers? We call them enablers here, right? At the festival. Why do we need catalysts in our economy?
To be honest, I think the founders, basically, I would call us the founding students of the Catalyst movement. We generally realized the trajectory of the country, and we didn't want to entertain politics. For us, politics is just theatrics at best. We needed to be technocrats. We didn't want to be bureaucrats. We didn't want rhetoric. We knew rhetoric wasn't going to feed us. Rhetoric wasn't going to guarantee the stability of our future financially and otherwise. And we understood that as a people, as Africans, regardless of whether you have European ancestry, we realized that we had a great philosophy that we lost, which is Ubuntu, which is the principle that mutuke mutukabatu. And that is basically a catalyst. And since we are the generation that twangs, we couldn't sell the idea to fellow youth using the word Ubuntu, Ubuntu. That only appeals to the older generation who only honestly use it as a cosmetic tool. I hardly see anyone genuinely practicing Ubuntu these days. Yeah.
Wow, man. Highlighting some really, really phenomenal elements. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still at the Startup Business Festival. Remember, our hashtags is hashtag Startup Biz Fest 22. Let's actually ensure that the world knows that we are on this amazing marathon of ensuring that we can make entrepreneurship fashionable and attainable, bringing amazing speakers, thought and practice leaders, people who are doing the most in this incredible space to come and share their know-how, and really through their know-how we can be transformed, because self-transformation must be the beginning part of any transformation process. Mr. Eugene, we talk about that the wealth of Africa and the wealth of nations will not necessarily in the 21st century knowledge-based industrial structure be based by on what is found beneath the ground, but what is found between the ears. You highlighted something very fundamental around the importance of skilling and building the skills that can enable individuals, organizations, and whole communities to thrive in this 21st century knowledge-based industrial structure. Maybe just comment a little bit about why we need to actually drive lifelong learning.
That is that is another very good question. To be honest, I feel that the purpose of life is to live. And I believe that perfection only exists in inanimate objects or in death. I feel that when a person dies, or when an object or an animal, insect dies, it has reached its perfection, basically. It has reached its nirvana state. Its purpose has been fulfilled. So as a person, there's always something to learn. I mean, we are born into this world not knowing how to talk, not knowing how to walk, not knowing how to comprehend, not having the emotional intelligence to deal with some of life's challenges. So I live by a saying, I embody this saying, I believe challenges are opportunities to grow. And if one doesn't come across challenges, which are actually the university of life, I call it challenges, the university of life. It's not institutionalized, it doesn't have a specific building per se. Today we're talking about online learning and saying we are democratizing learning. But to be honest, and I'm sorry that I have to be, I'm a believer. So to be honest, God, the greatest teacher, already established, what can I say, the greatest institution through challenges, So many times we shy away from challenges, not understanding that whatever that we pray for is lies at the other side of the challenge that faces us, You can't, if you aren't able to manage yourself, you can't be crying for God or for people to trust you with the management of 10 people or even 2 people, So that's why self-discipline, self-management, self-education as well is very important, and it starts with the continuous learning. Yeah.
I love that. I really, really love that. And talking about adversity, I think it's Napoleon Hill who says, any adversity carries with it a seed of equal or greater benefit. So really highlighting what you are talking about when you talk about really seeing that gold within this really difficulty that we typically go through. You highlighted that you are involved with BRICS and so forth. Maybe for a young person listening in, for our studio audience who are actually wondering, how do I as an entrepreneur, as an innovator, actually get to understand BRICS, what it is, first and foremost? And secondly, how do I ensure that I can leverage the benefits that actually come with being associated with BRICS? Or if it opens access to markets, how do we, as entrepreneurs, and in particular, given that this week we are putting a spotlight on fintech startups, how can fintech startups actually build solutions that can scale to the rest of the BRICS countries?
Thank you for another good question. I think, if anything, thank you for giving me the opportunity to reach out to youth, to reach out to South Africans in general, because there's one of the reasons why we have a summer school going on right now at the University of KwaZulu-Natal was to reach out to youth, to demystify what BRICS is. We are not, it's a trading bloc, honestly. It's not a military bloc. I know right now the topic is on Ukraine and Russia, but to be honest, our association, it's a trading bloc. And if you understand that business or economics is based on supply and demand, you understand the importance of having access to market. Because it's one thing to innovate, but selling the product is another thing, a totally different thing. That's why today you're able to find so many innovations and so many technology companies in China that are willing to give young, or not even necessarily young people, or entrepreneurs the chance to basically get a million in stock in order for them to sell to the market that they have access to. So BRICS in itself is a trading bloc between those countries in question: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it's about forging relations between 33% of the world's population. I mean, the countries in question are expected to take over to become the superpowers, generally speaking, within the next 10, 20, 30 years. They are encouraging the global south to actually be a part of the global economy. So as a young person, I think I would just put it this way, just to be practical, because I hate using these terminologies that your average Joe wouldn't necessarily understand. But if I could go back to that previous question that you asked about the importance of data, you find Umar selling tomatoes or bananas on the street, and that lady honestly has access to a certain amount of people passing by that spot every day. But if you are able to empower the same lady to basically advertise their products online, they're able to attract as many as 1 million potential customers that would be able to compare her product, her pricing with so many other suppliers. And at the end of the day, instead of having a maximum of 50 people who get to decide whether or not to support your business, you have access to 3.7 million people, as an example, of course. So, digitization is very important. It gives us more of a chance to be connected. I think, before I lose my...
No, fantastic. I mean, we talk about, and I love the fact that you've already brought in the importance of digitization, right? So, of course, we know that there are a lot of hurdles around, doing business on the continent. And before even going on the continent, let's look at the township and rural context. Great products, that are built and developed by our people. And some of them, we're talking to some entrepreneurs who've been working and doing what they're doing for 15 years. So you can imagine doing something for 15 years, it means that somehow, they understand how to do it. They've mastered the craft, and somehow, as we are outlining, that access to markets, access to business support services, access to technical skills are still critically great challenges. You find an upstart, they are within 2-3 years, they literally can raise R1 billion, so scale and so forth. So what can we do to take Umama from the rural context, who actually is growing amazing products and has mastered her craft, to ensure that 15 years later, we're not really still in the same position, really running a hand-to-mouth business. I love the fact that when you talk about access to markets, you're already talking about 1 million people. So if I am, as a small business, able to support 1 million people and build systems that can enable me to be able to do that, my life will be different. It will never be the same again as a result of that. And also, because of the scale, I can actually be able to employ more people. Maybe talk to that. What can we do to really break the walls that really prevent township and rural businesses from participating in the mainstream economy?
That's another beautiful question. If anything, I'll just take this moment to also state that you are one of the best human beings that I've ever met. To be honest, this campus, Startup Business Campus, is a beautiful initiative because, to be honest, the most important thing is capacitation. think the one thing that we're lacking as Africans is capacitation, the ability to translate our ambitions into quality products that are worth the money or worth the salt. I also have come across a conclusion, which is within a global world, collaboration is the new form of competition. And as South Africans, especially within the township context, we find it easier to want to compare and compete rather than come together, conduct joint SWOT analysis, understand who's who in the room so that we can provide the best available product or service. You know, we are always trying to compete. Mina, my mother is Maskosana, now I want to compete with Mamkwape or whoever across the street because we grew up together and we used to wear the same clothes, or our mothers used to make sure we look alike. And now we've grown and then we've taken different directions in life, and now we want to compete. I want to show you that I have a better car or that I chose a better career. But to be honest, what product are we selling as South Africans? You know, the Japanese are selling Toyota. There's a Japanese car in every country. What do we have? What unique product are we having? Do we even import toothpicks, for example? That's because we simply find it easier to work with Chinese, to work with Americans, to work with, you know, name them, rather than work with my own brother or work with the lady next door. I mean, maybe I studied IT and I see the lady who's committed to farming, who's been selling her products that are well known, that people travel 200 kilometers, 10 kilometers to purchase. Why don't I, as a Gen Z or whatever, a millennial, why don't I help her create an e-commerce or an online shop so that we, both of us, can have access to, a better future?
I love that. I love that so much. I remember looking at a report by the UNDP, and this is actually as far back as 1997, right? So in this report, they were talking about how we've seen growth on the African continent. You know, some countries really grew double digits, over the last couple of years and so forth. And however, what they saw as a big challenge was that, we had voiceless growth, we had ruthless growth, we had jobless growth, we had futureless growth. So how do we ensure that as we, mainstream or, the digital economy, that we do not actually end up with a situation where there is tremendous growth, but the question is, who is this growth for? I mean, we saw with COVID and during that period that a lot of digital entities or people who actually got into the market first were actually making a killing during the COVID time. So we want to digitize our economies and so forth, which is absolutely critical, and we need to ensure that, we can do that as quickly as possible to open that market access. I mean, if you look at Southern Africa and how big the market is, if we can be able to coordinate our activities within that particular space. But how do we ensure that, that the fourth industrial revolution, these amazing tech solutions that we're building, do not actually, create exclusive economies that, move our people away from opportunities?
Yeah, thank you for that one. To be honest, I come across as a person who doesn't face challenges, a person who, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. Basically, that's what I'm referred to, because I'm always optimistic, and not to say I'm not a realist, not to say I'm not aware of. I don't come across reasons to give up each and every day myself, but because it's harder to actually do the right thing. It's harder to be a kind person. It's harder to motivate a person. It's always easier to not give your all, basically, as a person. But with regards to the question that you're asking, I can't deny, we cannot deny the socio-economic condition in Africa. We cannot, in South Africa, let's bring it back home. We cannot deny the gatekeepers that exist. We cannot deny, the consumerists that pose as entrepreneurs, We cannot deny the fact that we have political, or what can I say, government officials who are competing with small businesses, They are sitting in the offices, they have the power of the pen, and you submit your innovation as a young black African, and your idea is suddenly implemented by those who have access to money. So basically, I'm saying, going back to our slogan as Catalyst, is we were founded so that we can create employment and opportunities for employment through skills development and the leveraging of information. All of that is access. Because when a person doesn't know what they can do to improve their lives, they resort to immoral ways or even criminal ways in order to support themselves, in order to support their children, etc., etc. So, I mean, my partners would even say it all the time. I'm in the tracking and telematics industry. And we had a unique challenge where one of our clients' trains, it's a mining company, whenever they pass through rural KZN villages, there would be a stop. And whenever the train would stop, villagers would come in droves and steal the chrome ore off of those trains. And we then created a mock chrome ore with a tracking device, just because we wanted to trace the source of the person who's buying the material at the end of the day. We managed to trace the fake chrome ore to a mining refinery or a refinery, a Chinese refinery in the middle of the veldt in Mozambique. So even our law enforcement is unable to intervene, but of course we needed the help of Interpol in order to, but that goes back to the saying that as long as we have poor people, some people know they will always have access to people who are willing to steal, loot, destroy on their behalf. So as long as we have immoral consumers posing as business people, we'll always have inequality, because those people have access. Now we live in South Africa where data, honestly, I don't know why they call it data, because data is information. Connectivity, the access, is sold for exorbitant amounts, you know. We also have a project in Ekurhuleni. We are digitizing Ekurhuleni in partnership with the Department of Education. We had intended on distributing about 1 million devices. We thought we would distribute laptops, but of course in consultation with the National SGB Association, parents, and other stakeholders, we realized that most South Africans feel left out, you know. You go to your MK soldiers, your liberation soldiers, your former child soldiers, who were literally child soldiers. That's a fact that's not acknowledged. They were child soldiers. And they were young before democracy, and after democracy, they were too old. And now in 1996, there was the Youth Act, and it included everyone who was young and not those who were young, pelting police cars with stones. And now today, those very same young people that know how to operate AK-47s and the likes, you'll find that mostly they are involved in CIT heists and the likes, you know, because they feel excluded. So the system that does not consider them, why should they consider this system? You know, so there's a variety of issues, but access is the main problem. Gatekeeping is the main problem. Regulation and deregulation. You know, people regulate for their own nefarious reasons. People deregulate for their own nefarious reasons. I could go on and on, but I think the main thing is access, data. Without information or the ability for the average South African to have access to the online community, it is simply not yet Uhuru.
You are touching a lot of really, really, really important points. I mean, and the question is, who actually should drive the digital revolution? We talk about it, the fourth industrial revolution, the second, the third, and now we're talking about the fourth. And revolutions by nature are not really, the revolution are really radical. There is an element of radical transformation that actually needs to take place to facilitate that access. So in South Africa, we are known to be very good at diagnosing and knowing that this is an issue and so forth, but whose role and responsibility is to actually drive this revolution and to drive that access? Is it the public sector? Is it the private sector? Is it the civil sector? Is it academia? Is it individuals themselves, where people can actually arise to actually say, we are demanding access? And what will be the mechanism to actually drive that access?
Another very good question. I'm loving this interview. Yeah, I'm loving this. Yeah. Okay. Oh, All right. Lovely question. I should actually invite you to my podcast so that you actually ask these questions. But to be honest, I think I would go back to one of the many analogies that I've been busy making, which was we are the sum of our parts, you know. Each and every person counts, you know. This thing of criticizing government, not understanding that those people are our representatives. We vote for them, you know. We put them in power. Some of them are not voted in. They are hired. There's a formal recruitment process. It's not, you know, media, let's not be driven by media that's not interested in building South Africa. That's only interested in the drivel, the negative, the sensationalist stories. You'll always find a scandal. You'll always find a scandal. That's why publications, let me not mention publications, but certain publications thrive in a toxic environment because people only know toxicity. You know, you find that a child is brutally killed today, and in 3 days we already forgot. On to the next one. We want to know about dirty files and the likes. But in essence, I'm saying as a people, you know, which is why I love the fact that government has been on a rapid drive to address mental health. Because if there's one thing that I always say, I addressed it at a session with Dr. Trudy Dlamini. She was the Vice Chancellor, Wits Vice Chancellor, invited by my mentor, one of my mentors, Mr. Morris Khadebe. He was then the VP of Sasol. And we were working on the reason why he even became my mentor. We had proposed sort of like a socio-economic development plan for the entire SADC region with Sasol as a key player. I mean, if you think of Sasol and its heritage to South Africa, yeah, that's a story for another day. But basically, Sasol was in a position to create a lot of jobs in a lot of countries across SADC. But it chose to lose close to $100 billion in America, but it's fine, you know, because we value investing in America, we value working with Americans or foreigners, and let me put it that way, more than working with each other, you know, to the point where we even lose our entire innovations. For example, Denel losing its patents to the Arabians and stuff, to so many things that hurt a person, but let's avoid that. But in essence, mental health is a real thing in South Africa. When Trudy Dlamini was speaking about men are trash and everything, I was a recent father. You know, my boy was 2 months old, I think, at that time, and I couldn't fathom him growing up in an environment where he's already professed to being trash. You know, where he's already told that the best he could ever be is trash, you know. So I wonder, I mean, there's only two types of human beings, it's men and women. You know, every man has a mother and father. So if we start as men calling women all sorts of names and killing them, abusing them, and if we as women also don't recognize the men that try their best to fight their demons and protect them, why can't we just understand? No, this topic is very emotional because I've lost a lot of people close to me because of depression, drugs, because of mental health issues. We jointly as a country lost arguably one of our biggest stars, Ricky Rick, as a result of mental health issues. And I was telling the audience, Trudy Dlamini, and I was saying, you know what, before we label men as trash and we make it a topic, because the face of rape and the face of violence is a black man. It's not an Indian man, or it's a black man. And we need to understand that, and we need to take responsibility for our actions. You know, we have access to platforms, but we misuse those platforms. And that's why I called out the media to say, are you more interested in exposing dirty laundry or building South Africa? Because we are not perfect. Yes, we have the best constitution in the world. We come from a period of violence, which was also preceded by a period of violence. No, there's something called epigenetics, which is inherited trauma. That's what I spoke to her about. And, you know, I'm speaking to a doctor, I'm speaking to an academic, you know, and I'm expecting them to understand these concepts and to educate people, because they have access to these platforms and they're always keynote speakers. But do they take their power and transform it into responsibility? Do they take their roles and transform it into responsibility? Do they address or help people understand that generally speaking, they have inherited trauma that they can't account for? You know, your grandmother who was brutally attacked by a big white man 200 years ago, you today are able to physically, emotionally, spiritually feel the effects of that event. You know, you find yourself being scared, intimidated, seeing this figure, not understanding that it's a memory that was activated within your DNA, you know. So South Africans, apartheid, colonialism, slavery, name it, that is in the DNA of our children. Are we addressing it? Do we have a national counseling session where we speak to each other, check up on each other? Are you okay? You know, I saw this beautiful program that the National Department of Health was saying to say, cheki uncle for ETB and all of that. But besides ETB, mental health, check on your little brother, check on your sister, check on your mother. Is she okay? Does she still find a reason to live? Does she still find a reason to be kind? Because being alive is difficult. It was never meant to be easy. That's why it's more important for us to work together, to collaborate instead of competing. Because there's always a reason to give up. There's always a reason to want out of this world. There will always be a reason to want to move to Australia. Or where are they moving to now? Oh,
Wow. You know, you're touching on a number of very, very, very critical points. Once again, shout out to Dr. Maurice Khatebe. You know, he's been doing the most in building the next generation of leaders, and I've seen him doing it over the last 20 years, even longer, actually. So shout out to him for that. And our brother is raising something very important. I remember actually being in Switzerland in 2012, 2013, 2012, and we're actually in an archive called Basler Africa Bibliothek. So it's like a private archive which has been documenting and taking a lot of the history of South Africa. So PhD students, master students who want to pursue the careers in history and so forth will go to this archive because they have quite a lot of resources and around what happened in Southern Africa in general. And on this particular occasion, we had they had invited the academic then, when she was still an academic and just from the World Bank, Dr. Mampela Rampele. And they had invited an activist, former councillor from Naledi in Soweto, and they had Mr. Engelbrecht, who wanted to be the mayor of Cape Town then. And it was actually the time where we engaged in deeply on basically the South African history and looking in particular at 100 years of the ruling party. And there's a particular statement that Dr. Mampele there, before she launched the political party, said, and which I thought was quite interesting. She says, in South Africa, what we are suffering from in the main, the Africans or the black South Africans are suffering from inferiority complex. And the white South Africans are suffering as well from superiority complex. So she was talking about these complexes that we need to deal with or address as South Africans to actually be able to move forward. So I'm bringing this because we're talking about, how do we transform or the agency of fintech startups in the country? And I'm wondering, as we invest in startups, are we investing in just the external, or do we also need, because our discussion and where this discussion is going, it also talks about the inside out. Are we building entrepreneurs that know themselves, that actually have been able to deal with issues? Because you've seen how people do get money, get funding, but somehow, because of not being ready mentally and also socially and otherwise, somehow all of those opportunities, are lost. What could have potentially been a game changer for a community somehow, because we're not somehow able to house the opportunities that we have, we're affected. So I'm highlighting this.